Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from the Frontier. I trust you had a great Christmas. We had my brother visiting from Chicago, my father from Mombasa, so it was a lot of fun. We hung around Nairobi, and it's a little bit of empty street syndrome. It's very pleasant. You can get around very quickly. I like it. I like this quote from Michelle Obama. Never believe that there is a room you have no right to walk into. I like this 33 photos that sum up an extraordinary year in Europe. Boris sort of captures that. Home thoughts, it was very sad to hear about George Michael passing away, only 53 years old, and a really totemic figure. I can remember all his songs. He was a couple of years older than me, burst on the scene when I was a teenager. And I like this photograph, which is from a later date, but at a concert to raise money for the AIDS charity in Paris in September 2012. Construction of the Twin Towers is a photograph I found from 1970, very evocative. I was thinking about the new year. I went back to Lord Alfred Tennyson, In Memoriam, ring out wild bells. Ring out wild bells to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let him go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind, for those that here we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to all mankind. Ring out a slowly dying cause and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life with sweeter manners, purer laws. Do you believe in climate change, or are you like Mr. Trump? It's called the weather, it gets hot, it gets cold. Dust Devil photograph by Georgina Goodwin. And then I like this by Georgina as well, aerial over Lamu Island on the North Kenyan coast, where a whole bunch of folks have gone to visit this break. It's a fabulous place. Political reflections, a truly remarkable event, solidifying peace and friendship with our two great nations. This is the Pearl Harbor commemoration, President Obama and Shinzo Abe, who was brought to utter silence during the historic visit to Pearl Harbor. So a big statement, I think, and speaks to the fact that Japan remains the US partner of choice, and Abe is keen to make that point with President Obama, sending some powerful messages, I think. Pearl Harbor, important geopolitical moment, and I think he struck the right note, but President Obama always knows how to strike the right notes. And then I couldn't resist this, Hawaii from Ivanka Trump. And take a look at her recent tweets. They're of a different tone. It's quite interesting. Israel's settlements have no legal validity, constitute a flagrant violation of international law, the Security Council has reaffirmed. 14 delegations in favor of Resolution 2334, as the United States abstains. Security Council reaffirmed this afternoon that Israel's establishment of settlements in Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem, had no legal validity, constituting a flagrant violation under international law and a major obstacle to the vision of two states living side by side in peace and security within internationally recognized borders. Adopting Resolution 2334 by 14 votes, with the US abstaining, the Council reiterated its demand that Israel immediately and completely cease all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. It underlined that it would not recognize any changes to the 4th of June 1967 lines, including with regard to Jerusalem, other than those agreed by the two sides through negotiations. Now, that is the law, and the fact that the US has given Israel a pass in that regard for so many years is neither here nor there. The point is that's the law, and I think Israel is caught in a paradox because the more they expand into these occupied lands, the less chance there is of a two-state solution de facto. And so I think, Hervé in Kinshasa likes to call President Obama the debunker in chief, and I think with this he's debunking the Israeli position. Israel threatens to give Trump evidence Obama was behind UN resolution. It's an old story that the United Nations gangs up on Israel. Israel's ambassador Denis said on CNN, what is new is that the United States did not stand up and oppose that gang up. And what is outrageous is that the United States was actually behind that gang up. When asked to provide evidence of that supposed collusion, which the Obama administration has been denying for days, Denis said it would be presented to the incoming administration. We will present this evidence to the new administration through the appropriate channels, and if they want to share it with the American people, they are welcome to do it, Denis said. Israeli ambassador issued his threat shortly after a Netanyahu spokesman said the government has rather ironclad information from sources in both the Arab world and internationally that the resolution was the result of a deliberate push by the US, and in fact they helped create the resolution in the first place. The threat to a sitting US president and the way it is playing its cards in favor of an incoming administration of the country that has long been Israel's closest ally appears almost unprecedented. Israeli penetration of the US is a known, and you see it in Congress and so many other places. What was unknown was how Bibi Netanyahu weaponized this penetration against President Obama. Ambassador Shapiro, who is the US ambassador to Israel, tweeted, Ben Rhodes of the White House explains the background to the vote at UN on Channel 2, well worth listening to, because he is his master's mouthpiece, so you get a clear view as to what President Obama is thinking. Foreign affairs, the secular Israel that captured the world's imagination is gone. In June 2016, Ian Green analyzed Donald Trump's rhetoric and why it swept more experienced politicians aside. It is easy to make fun of the way Donald Trump uses the English language. His tweets tend to follow the same structure, two brief statements, then a single emotive word or phrase, and an exclamation mark. On June 12th, after the Orlando shootings, we must be smart. He invented playground nicknames for his opponents, Little Marco, Lying Ted, Crooked Hillary. His vocabulary is earthy, big league to describe how he would do things, or schlonged for someone beaten badly. During the primary campaign, his swearing was so criticized that he promised to stop and actually did. I'm saying he must be doing something right. After all, language is virtually all a politician has to wield influence, with handshakes and hugs aside. And it's a very interesting, another Trump tactic is repetition. And saying, yet the most effective way Mr. Trump beguiles his audience is perhaps the simplest. He does not give speeches. Instead, he talks. And I spoke about this on the 14th of November when I said, President-elect Trump deployed linguistic warfare with devastating effect. And then I went to Beppe Grillo. This is the deflagration of an epoch. It is the apocalypse of the information system, of the TVs, and the big newspapers, of the intellectuals, of the journalists, and this is another important point. Traditional media has lost its position of control, and someone like Trump, it was a devastating exponent of that. Valeur Actuelle, an inhabitant of Aleppo, says Aleppo is not dead, it's not fallen. Aleppo has been liberated. President Assad and the First Lady visited the orphan children of Our Lady Sadnaya Monastery in rural Damascus as a Christmas festivity. So I think, we've got Fisk has written a very interesting piece in Counter Punch. Do take a look at that. And I think, the narrative we're being fed is not really the reality. Russian Investigation Committee launches criminal case on the Tu-154 crash in the Black Sea. I'm not so convinced that this was a pilot error, and I take you back to the MH370. And I said, it was Johan Borgstad told me the signal announcing this new arrhythmic normal was the disappearance of the MH370. We are witnessing the flow of information. So we're not witnessing the flow of information so much as pure spectacle, or information made sacred, ritually unreadable. The small monitors of the office in a car become a kind of idolatry here, where crowds might gather in astonishment. So many planes have fallen, just like flies out of the sky, I must say. It's the sort of terror that's being visited on Europe's streets took me back to a period in the 1970s. Gerhard Richter painted pictures of these are the German left-wing terrorist groups, Red Army faction, who perpetrated a number of kidnappings and killings throughout the 1970s. It just took me back to that. Only whispered salutes to survival since power-drunk clowns have taken over the circus. This is Amy Gessler. No kidding, Mr. Z couldn't be reached for comment to Wall Street Journal. Saudi royal family still spending in an age of austerity. New York Times take a look behind a tall perimeter wall, studded with surveillance cameras and guarded by Moroccan soldiers. A sprawling new palace for King Salman of Saudi Arabia rose on the Atlantic coast here last summer. Talking about how much they're spending, it's a fortune. Secretary of State John Kerry's plane is seen here arriving at the Royal Terminal at King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah in 2014. Effort to contain Russia are failing, says Lilia Shevtsova, which is what I've been saying myself. Allegations of Moscow's meddling in the US presidential election suggest vulnerability in the face of Russian power, real or imagined. Here is a state that has given itself a shot of adrenaline, not by openly combating its opponents so far, but by undermining it from within. How to contain an opponent that wields your own liberal slogans against you. How to deter an opponent that has created powerful lobbying networks inside Western societies. And how to constrain an opponent that employs nuclear blackmail. We don't want any confrontation. We need friends, Putin has said repeatedly. And just take a read again of my piece, Putin's Parabolic Rebound, which covers this kind of thing as well. International markets. Here is your chart of the day. Consumer confidence for young people dives, while consumer confidence for old people surges. This is from the Stalwart. And I touched on this on the 14th of November when I said I think the QE, quantitative easing consensus, is now a busted flush. And I was saying, a vast swathe of the pro-Brexit and pro-Trump camps were the older white folks who have seen their savings evaporate in the world of negative interest rates. This is the point. They want a return on their savings. And Theresa May and Trump get that. The bond markets get it as well. And I think that's why you've seen such a surge, because you're seeing the normalization of the interest market. is now underway. And that normalization, that high interest rate structure is propelling the dollar, as I said, on the 21st of November. Remind you of what Theresa May said at the Conservative Party annual conference in October. While monetary policy, with super low interest rates and quantitative easing, provided the necessary emergency medicine after the financial crash, we have to acknowledge there have been some bad side effects. People with assets have got richer, people without them have suffered, people with mortgages have found their debts cheaper, people with savings have found themselves poorer. A change has got to come, and we're going to deliver it because that's what a Conservative government can do. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro 104.66, dollar index 102.29, Japanese yen 117.50, Swiss franc 102.70, the pound below 123 at 122.92, Aussie 0.7213, India rupee 68.215, South Korean won is soft 1207.01, the real is quite firm at 3.271, Egyptian pound 19.068, and the South African rand 13.9055. Dollar index last trading at 102.89. I'm putting up a longer term chart. My target is 110. Euro dollar 104.70, 104.65. My target here is parity, and then below 0.90. Gold last trading at 1142.50. I don't see it running away to the upside anytime soon. Crude oil, US crude oil around the $54 mark, getting ever closer to my cap of 60. Arctic sea ice has been shrinking since 1980. This is one of the most important markers of global warming. Simon Kustenmacher, just confirming that I cannot help feeling we are like frogs in boiling water. We have created massive interference in the cosmic tuning phenomenon. Wall Street Journal, one of 2016's worst performing assets was frontier markets, I'm afraid. Investors pulled $840 million in 2016 from frontier market funds. Trump is to meet with the Republic of Congo President Denis Sassou. He plans to meet with the US President-elect. I think he should have met him already yesterday. The ongoing political turmoil, crisis in Libya and other African issues. Howard French, who I interviewed not too long ago, Trump's meeting with Congo's Sassou Nguesso, a very repugnant guy, in brackets, won't get much media because it's Africa, and it shows truly atrocious judgment. Put up a photograph of him. We've had enough. Kinshasa holds its breath amid talks to end violence. It's a power struggle, whether around a table or in the streets, said Valentine Mubake, a senior official of the UDPS, the main opposition party. Kabila now appears to have won the first round of hostilities. No ruler has fallen because of what happens in Kinshasa. Their resources are drained by the sheer effort of controlling the country, and then they topple. DRC's Congo's central bank cut its 2016 GDP growth estimate to just 2.5%. I announced the provisional cessation of military hostilities across the country as from midnight Tuesday, said Lakama, who is hiding in the bush. I took the initiative. I called the President of the Republic, Philippe Nyusi, and gave him the possibility to offer this provisional truce. China appreciates and welcomes Sao Tome and Principe's return to the right track of the One China principle. A lot of cash, Mr. Flair. South African all-share back below 50,000, minus 2.55% this year. Dollar rand 13.9055, kind of mid-range. Egyptian pound trying to steady, got as high as 1949. It's now at 19.07. Nigerian all-share down 7.53%. Ghana Stock Exchange down 16.63% this year. Only about 7,100 cheetahs remain in the world. I'll put up a photograph of the cheetah, which had just brought down in Eland when we were at Borana. Really, and I tweeted, nature is red in tooth and claw. Uganda, 30 footballers and fans drowned in Lake Albert on Christmas Day, unfortunately. Election laws, anxiety as Senate decides. This is from the Star, and certainly there is a bit of anxiety. Fitch has maintained its long-term rating on Kenya's foreign and local currency at B+, but with a negative outlook. Kenya's large and persistent fiscal deficits have led to a steady increase in gross general government debt to 55% of GDP at the end of full year 16 from 42% at end full year 13. Fitch forecasts it will rise further to 57% at end of full year 17. Over the holiday period, we paid a visit to the Nairobi National Park and I started driving along the southern boundary. The interesting point was we always used to drive quite near the entrance, the one near exact sort of Langata Cemetery. And I'd never see much and I'd always be disappointed. And last time, or 2 times ago, I said, Tennyson, let's just go down. Because I remember when I was young, if you got down to the Arthi area, there was plenty to see and gosh, we saw everything. And then I went back to some of these old books I've got, like the Man-Eaters of Savo, and I read his piece about when he was in that area, and it was full of game. So I headed straight down there, had a lovely time, put up a photograph of my brother's family and mine, saw this zebra very close, a lioness which Hannah spotted, and then she set off on a hunt, and you could see her getting ready.